Hi! I am so glad you're here, because we're continuing our Halloween monster mash with a new creature. Can you guess what it is? This week we're gonna make a ghost. And yes, I'm considering that a monster in this sense because the rules I'm going by for this Halloween project series is whatever the antagonistic being is in your horror movies, books, etc. And I think ghosts fit in that description. Cultures across the globe all have their own versions of ghost stories and legends, and some common themes as to why people think ghosts stick around are a loop. They could be living a loop of something that happened in their life. They could have unfinished business, and kind of connected to that unfinished business is revenge. And I feel like of all the ghost stories I've seen, they pretty much fall into those categories. The unfinished business could be something like saving somebody they couldn't in their life, or maybe it's just a matter of something that was unfulfilled, an unfulfilled wish, an unfulfilled conversation that wasn't finished. But I think in a lot of horror movies it's revenge. Whatever their reason, they're sticking around. And I kind of want to make a ghost that has stuck around for so long they don't even remember why. And they've been around so long, so they've become more of a monster than a human spirit. So this is the design I have. Much like the last video, we are going to get a little spooky-ooky with this, and I would like to make some of my facial features disappear. Somehow. I referred to very early medieval. We're not going for historical accuracy, so we're putting in some fantasy elements just with a bit of a historical reference or inspiration. And I feel like a common fashion element when we think of like medieval princess gowns is those long medieval or Renaissance. See, now I'm questioning everything. Hi, editing here. Popping in to say that what I mean by this is it was kind of hard to tell during research what was and wasn't actual period garments, because a lot of the art I found was actually painted 300 years after the medieval period and romanticizes it a lot, and works of art that I did find from that time weren't super detailed. And there's also just too much that I could tell was AI polluting the pool of resources. And because I'm not an expert, I started to question whether I would be able to tell if a very old piece of art was indeed AI or if it was real, because have you seen some of the early art? It's pretty funny to look at. It also just seems like something that would be very easy for AI to generate because it's just so goofy looking to begin with. I couldn't find a ton of good, trustworthy resources when it came to looking at actual historical garments, but what I could find wasn't very fun to look at. And that's kind of why the romantic version of medieval garb is more fun for people to wear to like run fairs and such. Unless your goal is historical recreation, which is super cool. I couldn't really explain that in the intro because I couldn't get my brain together, but I got it now. Either way, the long sleeves, and kind of use that to add some fun movement, because I feel like that'll add this spectral element. Having said that, I don't know what fabric I'm going to use for this, because I don't have a lot of white fabric, which might be a problem. But we're gonna do our best. Let's just keep our spirits high and get to work. First things first, I took stock of what white fabric I had on hand, which was mostly scraps. I had one off-white tablecloth in my stash, but it has Christmas flowers on it, so I didn't want to use that for this project. So I was left with the remnants of these white curtains, but I only had one full panel left. The scrap pieces I had were large enough, luckily, to make the bodice, and I was feeling very daring with this project and just draped the dress directly onto the dress form. No mock-ups, no second chances. I continued my Halloween movie marathon by watching ghost movies. I watched the original Poltergeist, which has some of my favorite subtle scares. By the time I finished draping and piecing out the bodice, I realized I would definitely need to scare up some more white fabric. So the next day I haunted my local thrift store and found 2 bed sheets that were perfect. The flat sheet was 100% cotton, ideal for the underskirt, and the fitted was a thin polyester blend that had a really nice flow to it, so I decided to use that for the sleeves. I put the bodice together, recoiled at the infamous clown scene in Poltergeist, and then zigzag stitched over the edges of the bodice. To make the sleeves, I started with a flared sleeve pattern and almost just combined it with my circle skirt, but after looking at pattern examples of these super long sleeves, I decided to just take my understanding of the general shape and wing it. To my great surprise, it worked. But it had been a long day, so I attached the sleeves the next day. While pinning and sewing the overdress together, I started the Insidious series. I'd never seen the first 2, so it was fun to see a scary movie I hadn't actually seen before. Clearly, I had a lot of feelings about the first one. was a little hard to show updates on the dress because I had no idea when a scare was coming. Oh, no. The bodice was all put together, but I thought it needed some more lace, so I added 2 strips to the front and 1 in the middle on the back. Oh! Oh!
You have a more insidious agenda.
Hey, that's the name of the movie.
As I attached the overskirt to the bodice, I watched the second Insidious movie, which was notably less scary than the first, and honestly, kind of funny.
But he's just vibing.
Let's just say I wasn't as interested, but that was good because I got the overdress done pretty quickly as a result. Although the jump scares did get me a couple times. The dress needed some fixes as far as the fit was concerned, mainly in the shoulders, but after working on that a little bit, I made the underskirt. This was just a floor-length circle skirt that I didn't bother to hem, used the finished top of the bedsheet for the waistband, and then to close it in the back, I cut some holes in it and made a really rough lace-up closure. I wasn't really concerned about this being very polished, so nothing was hemmed. It felt like it was missing something. I decided to rough up the front a bit by adding some shredded fabric strips to wear over top the skirt. To make this, I simply took 3 different fabrics and shredded them into strips. The idea was to avoid stitching each individual piece to the skirt directly and make a removable shredded skirt by stringing the strips onto an elastic waistband. Using sheets for the strips was helpful because the hemmed edges, when cut just to the side of the stitching, resulted in a 3-strip piece instead of just 2. After lots of ripping, tearing, and shredding, I finished the extra skirt pretty quickly while watching La Llorona. When I tried everything on again, the bodice still wasn't fitting very well, so I fiddled with the shoulder straps once again to bring it in even more. The front of the overdress looked a little odd and covered up the shredded skirt too much, so I chopped off some fabric in the front. Added some wire to the little peak at the bottom of the bodice, and called it a night. The next day, I started the headpiece and watched The Haunting of Hill House. I'm basing it off of this drawing of a French queen's headpiece from 1377, and while hers was likely made of gold, ours is cardboard, foam, and hot glue. I used white fabric to imitate the white hair that would be underneath the netting, and stuffed them with a bit of polyfill. To make the netting, I used a combination of beading wire and thread to make beaded strands stretching across each piece. I've been wanting to make a Juliet cap, and this made me want to make that happen sooner than later. To cover the foam, I used some silver scraps from making the shredded skirt. Then I started making a crown so that the paint could dry as I beaded the second netting. For the crown, I used some more cardboard scraps, cut out 2 layering pieces, hot glued them together, and then painted the whole thing silver. Although the only silver paint I had was puffy paint, and for some reason I decided to paint it on with my fingers. While that dried, I finished the second hairpiece, and stuck them both to a wire headband. The crown needed some jewels, so I hot glued some gems all around the crown and then painted a few more coats of silver and gray paints over everything. After I aged the crown, I was then faced with the overwhelming urge to age the gown. I hadn't planned to originally, but I knew deep down it would look better if I did. So I aged the gown, the crown, and the hair pieces, and before long, it was all done. So it's time for the reveal.
Have you seen the woman in white? Some say she was a queen, poisoned by someone in her court. Others say it was a more violent betrayal. Her name, her country, her likeness, all have been lost to time, but her rage lives on. If you have not seen the woman in white, count yourself lucky. And the next time the hairs on the back of your neck rise, whatever you do, don't turn around.
Well, I am just filled to the brim with ghoulish glee because I really like how this turned out. To make the effect on my eyes, I painted some pink tulle white and then attached them over my eyes with latex. I don't have white face paint, which would have made blending it out into my skin a lot easier. Also, because at that point my eyes were already covered, I couldn't really see exactly what I was doing or how it looked. But I'm pretty happy with how the effect turned out in the end. The latex did start to come up a little bit while I was filming because I was pretty warm and started sweating the latex off. But for the most part, I think it worked pretty well. I love the dress. Since I once again watched movies themed to the project, I thought it'd be fun to do another movie ranking. Last year, I started a log of every Halloween movie or show I watched, and I'm doing it again this year. And in that list, I rank things out of bats, like 5 out of 5 bats or 1 out of 5 bats. So that's how we're going to rate the movies going forward, because I have a feeling I'm probably going to do this in the next 2 videos as well. So let's go from worst to best, Ghost Edition. At the bottom, we've got Insidious Chapter 3. This was actually the only Insidious movie I think I've seen before, and I still didn't care for it the second time around. I didn't really like the script, and the franchise as a whole I felt got worse as it went on, which is why Insidious 2 also has a rating of 2 out of 5 bats. I also totally called the plot for the second chapter while I was watching the first movie. I didn't get it exactly right, but I knew what I was talking about. So here's a clip of that realization in real time. But if you, like me, have not seen them yet and you don't want a spoiler, skip the next few seconds.
Dude, I'm calling it right now. The dad is a demon, right? Or at the very least, he can astral project.
Wait, so I was right? I also gave 2 out of 5 bats to La Llorona. I think the actual tale is creepy. I just didn't like the movie very much. I'd actually seen it on a plane one time and I didn't like it then, but I thought, oh, maybe I missed something the first time around, so I'll give it another shot. I don't think I missed anything. Yeah, I don't know why, it just didn't hit. My personal taste with scary movies is subtlety. That kind of stuff, subtle things freak me out. And I think the problem that I had with La Llorona was that you saw it too much. You saw too much for too long. There wasn't enough suspense, and that's why I've given it 2 out of 5 bats. Now, the first Insidious movie was better than I expected it to be. I didn't really know what the plot or lore was for these movies going in, especially having only seen the third one. I don't think the third one really connects to the first 2 very well, so it didn't really give anything away plot-wise, and there were enough creepy parts in it to give it 3 bats out of 5, but still, a lot of the creepy things were too present and visible for most of the movie, so it's stuck at 3 out of 5 bats for me. Now, before I started working on the dress, when I was sketching, I actually watched 2 other ghost movies, the first being Malevolent. Now, I watched this for the first time last year, and I liked it enough to give it an annual watch. It was unsettling enough to be creepy, had both human and supernatural horrors, and it was pretty well done. 4 out of 5 bats. The movie I watched after that was called Run, Rabbit, Run. I did call the twist, if you want to call it a twist, I knew where they were going with it. But between this and The Babadook, I feel like I need to explore Australian horror more, because I like both of those films. The Babadook is an annual watch for me, so I think I'm gonna have to explore Australian horror some more. But Run, Rabbit, Run gets 4 out of 5 bats. Speaking of annual watches, our first 5 out of 5 bats goes to Poltergeist, the original. I do like the remake, but the original is... I love this movie. I watch it every spooky season. It's just a great classic.
The sequels, on the other hand, I tried watching those last year, and I couldn't get through Poltergeist 2, so just skip them. They don't exist. They're not good. In so many ways, they are not good, in my opinion.
The kitchen scene gives me shivers every time I see it, because that's the kind of creep that I want from a horror movie. You know something did that, and did it very unnaturally fast, but you didn't see what it was. And that's that kind of mystery and unknown that just, It's the kind of chill down my spine I love. Now, as you saw in the video, jump scares get me every time too, but my toaster jump scares me every time it goes off. So I don't really consider that a scare for me. It's just a startle. If I can hear the music building, I'll kind of cover my ears in suspense because I don't like being startled, but it gets me every time. Our next 5 out of 5 is The Sixth Sense. Now, I actually forgot to mention I was watching this while I was working, but that's just another great ghost story. Classic twist, great story, has my favorite kind of haunting. Again, the kitchen scenes. What is it with kitchens? And it actually made me want to watch Paranorman again, and I love Paranorman. Sixth Sense, 5 out of 5 bats. Our last 5 out of 5 bats is The Haunting of Hill House. This is another annual watch for me every spooky season now because I really enjoy it. The script can be a little straightforward, stating the obvious, very expository, but still, overall, I really enjoy this series, and I'm looking forward to watching Bly Manor again, which is another 5 out of 5 bats for me. And I realized while I was looking for movies to watch for this video, a lot of hauntings end up being some sort of demonic presence, which in my opinion is just predictable now because it's been done so many times, and it's not even a true haunting then because it's not really a ghost. There could be a ghost involved, but it's like, oh, the demon is using the ghost. Conjuring. So it's not even like a full haunting. It's like a demon using a ghost as a puppet to frighten the humans. What I liked about most of these, I'm not counting Insidious because there was a demon involved and I didn't realize that until I was in it, but most of these were just ghosts. And I think that's why I like Hill House and Bly Manor, because they're ghost stories. To my recollection anyway, I don't think there was any demonic presence. It's just ghosts. And I love that about the series. Kind of related also, one of the first things I watched this spooky season was that new Netflix show Haunted Hotel. Speaking of ghosts, there are plenty of ghosts in that show, and that might be a new annual watch for me because I really liked it, and it might even sneak into my regular roster of shows throughout the year because it was fun. I also failed to mention, but the story behind the ghost that I chose to make is a little more personal than I let on in the intro. Last year, I was sitting at the other desk across from me, which I don't usually sit at, and it triggered this really intense moment of deja vu. But in the deja vu version of events, I turned around and there was a woman in white standing behind me watching me, and I turned around as I realized I was having the deja vu. Of course, there was no woman in white, but it was such an intense feeling. Deja vu can come in like a, oh, that's pretty weird. But I've had some instances where I like feel it in my chest. Weird brain things. But this one was one of those very intense moments of deja vu, and it was a woman in white standing behind me in my workshop. So I kind of had her in the back of my mind while I was working on this and kind of added her into the lore that I made for this. Just a funny little brain thing that helped inspire this project that I forgot to share. I really like how this project turned out. And if you do too, you can let me know by hitting the like button. And if you want to see what I'm doing next and join the channel, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I post, hit the notification bell. YouTube will let you know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. I didn't think this through. I did not. He was next to me the whole time.